Welcome to What If Deku Was Gojo. Now, before we start, this isn't going to be some OP Deku just speedrunning MHA. No, I've decided to do something a little bit different. Anyways, that being said, if you like this type of stuff, check out my podcast below. It's got every full-length movie on my channel. And if you want to see more, like, sub, and drop a comment suggesting what to do next. Less yap, let's enjoy. Deku grows up in the same household as in canon, chilling with Inko and just living his best life. Growing up wanting nothing more than to be a hero, constantly watching videos of his idol, All Might, saving people with a smile on his face, never backing down. He loved everything about him, his energy, his aura, his strength. When he got his quirk, he was gonna be just like that. Cut to the doctor's office. Inko and Deku sit patiently as the doctor flips through his clipboard, asking Inko her quirk and her responding. I can float small things to myself, that's about it. His father could breathe fire. The doctor taps his pen on his head and as he reads the results. Well, Miss Midoriya, it seems your son does have a quirk. A strange one at that. It seems he can emit a passive field of space around himself with infinite distance. Deku and Inko look at each other before looking at the doctor. What does that even mean? The doctor continues, telling Deku to hold his hand out and spread it apart, concentrating on the space between his fingers. Deku would do this as Inko reached out to touch it. She approached, feeling a slight resistance, but that's it. No contact? She pushes harder, her fingers beginning to hurt if anything. Deku still watching with his eyes closed, doesn't feel a thing. She's amazed before suddenly Deku's nose begins to bleed and he faints in front of the two of them, having kept his field active too long. When he wakes up, he's already in the car, on his way home from the appointment. Inko excited for him, telling him all about his quirk before he passed out. His quirk was amazing. He just had to hone it. She brings him through Macca's on the way through and they get a happy meal before they go home. Deku deciding to try and train it right away. He goes to the backyard, closing his eyes and opening them, and opening and closing his fingers, feeling the air move out and around them as he would bring out his field. Opening his eyes and seeing it surrounding his hand. He looks closer, touching it with his other hand and feeling the pressure his mum was talking about. He starts feeling a pressure in his head, immediately turning it off, breathing heavy after just a few seconds of use. Either way, he finally had a quirk. He could finally be a hero himself. If you're wondering why he's not OP, by the way, he doesn't have the six eyes, but he's a little kid. Let's be real. He goes back to school the next day, walking in all big and proud, announcing he has a quirk. People crowding around him, asking him to show it off. Bakugo at the front, even the teachers looking over at him. Deku closes his eyes, imagining it once again before bringing it out. See, this is my quirk. He shakes his hand around. The kid's confused on what he's even doing. Bakugo speaks up. Heh, Deku got my hopes up for a second. Guess you're still a B-lister like the rest of these dweebs. Your quirk's so damn weak I can't even see it. The class laughs as Deku's nose begins to bleed. He listens to them and wipes the blood away, sitting down and thinking more and more. The bell would ring and he would get them all together, telling him to watch again. He closes his eyes and activates it, his head pulsating, but Deku doing it anyways. Bakugo laughs at him. 2 for 2, Deku. We still can't see it. The class laughs again, and Deku, now angry, tells him to touch his hand. Bakugo from the front decides to do it, walking forward and pressing his hand on Deku, feeling the pressure ever so slightly. He's about to push it more before Deku, having used it too much in one day, passes right out, the strain being too much. Bakugo standing over him looks at the class. Heh, guess I pushed too hard. They all snicker and get a teacher, Deku being sent to the nurse before coming back. Everyone's calling his power lame, self-destructive, and weak. From here, Deku would ignore everyone else, training to prove them wrong. They couldn't all talk. Their quirks were worse than lame. I mean, what can they even do? They're pretty much quirkless. From here, Deku would change, looking at people twice, becoming kinda cold if anything. From the age of 4 till about 10, Deku would train every day, using his quirk as much as he could every single day, using it for a few short seconds in his hand every hour of every day until his head rang in pain. From this, he would learn he can manipulate just a section around his body, reacting to attacks and slowing them down just before they hit to save energy. He also bumps his timer up once more from about 5 seconds of constant use, though he still can't surround himself. Feeling good about himself and his breakthrough in his quirk use, he finally decides to call Bakugo out after years of ridicule. resulting in a little scrap between them at lunchtime. Deku and Bakugo look at each other as the students surround him. Bakugo rushing in with explosions rearing with throw a punch, being blocked by Deku last second. Deku sits there completely still as Bakugo's punch stays dormant in the air. The class looks on. What? What even happened? Why wasn't Bakugo's punch connecting? Damn it, Deku! What the hell was that? He swings around and sends another punch to the side of Deku's head, once again being blocked last second. Deku calling it infinity, smirking a little as his head starts ringing and his nose starts bleeding. As Bakugo sends a kick to his stomach that couldn't be blocked, Deku blacks out just as Bakugo's foot connects with him, collapsing to the floor as Bakugo wails on his limp body. The teacher comes in to stop it, but it's too late. Deku on the floor was mangled, broken arm, bruised and battered. He rushes right to the hospital, waking up a day later with his arm in a sling and his whole body hurting. The nurse comes in and checks on him, looking him over, shining a light in his eye. He seemed okay, but he was still kinda battered. Deku's head wrung as he looked around. He barely remembered even what happened. He challenged Bakugo and, thinking back to it, he hit him again. Deku slumps over and stares at the hospital bed. Things had to change. His mum comes into the room worried as anything, talking to Deku and asking what happened. Deku lying and saying he was playing tag or something before asking to change schools. Inko thought it was a little bit sus but would agree to this. Deku being immediately pulled out of that school and put into one closer to the city. Back at his old school, Bakugo's ego spikes. He fought and beat a kid unconscious and his classmates cheered. His teachers looked at His teachers looked the other way and the principals didn't even listen. From then on, both of them would change. Bakugo going down his usual bully path and Deku dedicating himself to get his get back. From the age of 10 and after changing schools, Deku would train non-stop, telling his new class he was quirkless so they wouldn't mock his aspirations. He would go into the forest and train his infinity, wielding it for 5-10 seconds at a time, using it to lift things up off his hands, throwing things at his face and stopping them last second to feel none of the strain, push-ups, sit-ups, anything to help Deku get stronger. Throughout the years this goes on, living his normal life in his new school, not really talking to many people, doing his training. Over the years he's realized he's never really been as strong as All Might physically. He needed ways for him to use his barrier offensively. How else would he beat people in a fight? Deku continues to train his timing, discovering he can coat his fists in infinity like knuckle dusters, punching things with his infinity but still causing damage without recoil to Deku's body. He trains his new ability, doing some garp type of training, punching fridges and trees, coating his hands in infinity, trying to do anything to increase his power. One day, annoyed, Deku goes to the train once more. He was nearing the final day of school and he had nothing to show for it. He could hold infinity on certain parts of his body for around 20 seconds at a time and his whole body for about 5 seconds. So his defense was pretty solid, though his offense was still lacking. Punching that tree and closing his eyes, the anger builds up as he pushes harder and harder. His infinity flares, pushing outwards on the fist that connected with the tree. Flowing outwards at the point of impact, Deku opens his eyes after hearing a loud crack, seeing the tree had broken. What the? He tries it again, trying to feel the same feeling. His anger, his desperation, slamming his fist into the tree. His nose bleeds, but he didn't care. He watches as his infinity once again flares, coating more and more of his fist as it slams into the wood. So that was it. He needed to think about flowing it more, not imbuing. From there, he trains on. The final day of school begins and Deku is pretty confident. The teachers hand out the sheets and they fill it in this timeline, the teacher doesn't snitch about the class to Deku wanting to go to UA, pulling him aside and actually giving him some words of encouragement. Deku loving hearing this, he feels extra motivated, walking out of school and deciding to run home for a little more training. His 10 months beginning now. He runs home, rushing through the city block and down an old dirt path, following it under a tunnel before stopping to take a break. Deku's hands on his knees as he begins breathing heavy. That was a long run. Catching his breath, he would hear a slight dink near him, paying no mind. Still resting, would be completely oblivious to the villain attack right next to him, sending a tendril right at him and grabbing his neck straight away. Deku frozen would look to his left, seeing another tendril shooting at him, blocking it just in time with his infinity but being caught with a third from his feet. Slowly the villain approaches. I like my suits with a little bit fight. You'll do nicely, kid. He begins surrounding Deku. Deku looking around as he was about to be swallowed up, activating his quirk around his whole body in a last-ditch effort. The sludge villain slams himself onto Deku, but he was stopped about an inch away from him. What the hell? Deku looks around, his whole body feeling the strain of keeping Infinity active, like trying to flex every muscle in his body. Deku stands still, tensing and focusing on breathing. This was a life or death situation. His quirk fluctuated, dropping to a centimeters before spiking to 30 centimeters. The sludge villain being pushed off of him more and more as Deku remembers his whole life. The sludge villain has enough, putting pressure around every centimeter of Deku's infinity, squeezing on it as squeezing on in as on Deku as hard as he could. Deku's head began to feel this, a sharp pain going through his head. He had to keep it up though. This pain was only temporary. Fight or flight kicked in as he stands up, the pain in his head throbbing. His quirk, now going into overdrive, begins to push out, and out. The sludge nowhere near Deku. Deku trying to run away but being unable to. He collapses in the tunnel, his infinity lowering slowly as he blinks in and out of consciousness. He had to do something. There was still so much he had to do. He couldn't die just yet. Like, subscribe, and comment. That was the end of part 1. I hope you liked it. This story is going to go crazy. That's all I'm going to say. I remember writing this, and it's going to go crazy. If you like this, again, please like, subscribe, and comment. And drop any ideas you have in the comments. I do read them all. That's about it.